This is a podcast about both having autism and living with someone who has autism. My mom is Sonya, and I'm Josh, and this is Josh Has Autism.
Hey everybody, welcome to Josh Has Autism.
Hello.
That is Bug. You guys know Bug, aka Haley, Josh's sister. And we asked Josh to be on the podcast with us today, but he said no, he didn't want to. We're talking about Connor today. We did a podcast together before when his pediatrician recommended that he go and get testing for autism.
Mm-hmm.
And you're here today because you did that. So,
right.
Yeah. Tell everybody what happened.
So, the process is very different than what I expected. So we took Connor in, and because of COVID, everything is very weird. And they even put that in the report that the way that they had to do the testing was different than normal. So we originally did a telemed appointment with the psychologist to kind of talk about Connor a little bit and what she was seeing him for, and what our concerns were. And then they brought him in for a couple rounds of testing where they did lots and lots and lots of different tests. The first day that he went in, he was able to go in by himself. Gammy and I went together. And then while they were seeing him, they gave us homework. And had us do, on a scale of, and sometimes never, always, questions. And it was very challenging because some of the things were, well, he used to do this, but he doesn't now, or he just started doing this, and the instructions were, if he ever did, but he doesn't now, answer like he still does. So it was very convoluted. It was very, very difficult.
Some things just didn't apply because he's 5.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the tests that they did, they said were the test that the tests are formulated for specific ages. The questionnaires, I feel like, were too broad in age range. The questions weren't broad; they were very, very specific. But the age range for them, I think, a lot of the questions were too. They were geared for older clients, but.
And for those of you out there that are interested in the specifics, I'll run down this really quick. A lot of you already know these. So what they did, the testing included a diagnostic interview, Amen Clinic questionnaire, autism diagnostic observation schedule to ADOS-2, autism spectrum rating scales, ASRS, behavioral assessment system for children, parent rating scales. That's what Bug was just talking about. That's the one that we filled out about what we saw, what we observed with him on a regular basis. Bender Visual Motor Gestalt Test, Connor's Kitty Continuous Performance Test. That was the 2nd edition. Kinetic Family Drawing. That was attempted. It apparently didn't go too well.
No.
As well as the Bender Visual Motor Gestalt Test didn't go very well. Both of those say they were attempted. But if Josh,
yeah,
if Connor's doesn't want to do something, he's not going to do it. A Vanderbilt Assessment Scale, that's a parent information and input. Vinland Adaptive Behavioral Scale, it's a 3rd edition. And Wilshire Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence, that's the 4th edition. So those are the tests that were utilized for this process.
Right. So, like I was saying, the first day that he went in, they took him back, and he was able to sit there and kind of do whatever testing they wanted to get through. And then the second time, he absolutely insisted that I go with him. He did not want to go back alone, was very, very resistant.
Clingy.
Yes, very clingy. He insisted that I went back with him. So I went back, took him back there. I was like, I'm going to try and get him to sit down, and then I can get him comfortable, and then I can leave. Well, he did not let me leave. So I stayed there. I put him in the chair in front of the technician, and kind of sat in the chair behind him to try and... My presence comforted him, but tried to kind of stay out of the way. And like Mom said, the 2 of the tests he absolutely would not do.
What did he do when they tried to get him to do those?
What does he do when it's something new? What does he say?
I can't.
I can't.
Yeah.
Yep. So it was not a... And they tested him not just for... They weren't just looking at autism. They were looking at ODD and OCD and ADHD and a variety of different things. And because Connor is so resistant, that was something that they looked at, was the oppositional defiant disorder, is ODD. And ultimately they ruled that out because it's not that he is being defiant, they're saying, yes, he does have autism, and he's so rigid in his way of thinking that he can't get there on his own sometimes. So ultimately, I think that's what happened. Is they were asking him to do things that he wasn't in the mindset to do. And the test, sometimes it was very fluid into the next test. The technician was wonderful. She was, she was wearing a mask, so you can't see her face, but you could tell that she was smiling. Her energy was very welcoming. And I think that you're not going to get cooperation from a child if you're not like that. But some of the transitions were not as smooth, and it's just because the tests were so different. But a couple of the things he was not willing or able. Sometimes there's a fine line between the two, to transfer over to those tests. And she did try and go back to them. And it was not something that he was going to do. So, but it was really fun watching him do some of the tests. That Connor loves puzzles, and she wanted him to do puzzles, and something that the psychologist talked to us about was whenever he was doing those, he insisted on finishing them. So those are timed tests, and even though the time ran out for some of the harder ones, he wouldn't move on to the next one until it was completed. And the last 2 were more difficult, and the time did run out on the last 2, but he insisted on finishing them. So the technician and I came over, and we were looking at the puzzle and asking him, well, what do you think this part is? And, we're kind of working with him to get him to do it. And once it was completed, he was excited to do the next one. So all said and done, Connor has been given a provisional diagnosis of autism and has been diagnosed with severe ADHD. She says provisional because a couple of the things that he scored really well on put him at borderline. Now, it's interesting to me, the couple of things that he scored really well on are things that he needed us to fight to get him to where he is. So the two things that they were talking about, I'm sitting here thinking as she's talking to us, like, wow, those two things were horrible for the longest time. And that's eye contact. Whenever Connor was itty bitty, he wouldn't look people in the eye. Ever. And we would tell him, look at me with your pretty blue eyes. And now he always talks about his blue eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll look us in the eye. And it's all thanks to Gammy and Mommy and, everybody else working on that constantly. And it gave him... It gave him that score that kind of brought him just over the edge, which is really hard in two fronts. So I'm grateful that he got the diagnosis because now he gets the help that he needs. But at the same time, it is kind of heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't want, I think ultimately you don't want him to need the help.
Right.
But he does.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad that he's been able to overcome those things. But at the same time, it's hard to think he needs all of this extra help just to be okay.
Right.
So
he was diagnosed the autism spectrum disorder level 1, and what the recommendation is that he would benefit from applied behavioral analysis, which is ABA.
Mm-hmm.
What their hope so he's 5, and the doctors said that with the therapies he has the potential to, by the time he's 7 or 8, with improvements, that he could possibly not qualify for the diagnosis. She said that through the therapies there have been some wonderful benefits and improvements, right. And it's basically helping him to learn, how to handle new skills and new experiences. Like Bug just said, Connor now, he does have appropriate eye contact. The thing that he does need to learn is conversational skills.
Mm-hmm.
He will talk to, and anybody that's listening, you probably know this, that he has a subject that he talks about incessantly.
Mm-hmm.
And for Connor, that's dinosaurs. And but when he's 5, so he's still a little guy. But I would say a few years ago, even he knew the correct names of dinosaurs.
Yeah, he does.
He knows all about dinosaurs, and he wants to talk about them all the time. But he doesn't. One of the things that he asks us all the time is he'll say to us, "Show me your happy face."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he has a hard time figuring out what somebody else is feeling. He can't really read that nonverbal communication.
Right.
So they're recommending the ABA therapies for him. The ADHD. Do you know what she's wanting to do for that?
So she had said that the ABA will help with that as well.
Okay.
As he gets older, she said that right now medication's an option. I don't think that that's necessary for a 5-year-old. And if this program's going to help with that, then I kind of want to see where that goes before I ever consider that route.
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of alternatives, and there's ways that we can, help him with that, before I want to go that route. Now, I'm definitely not anti-medication, but he's 5 and I want to do other things first.
Mm-hmm.
So, because medication does help with a lot of things. So,
well, and there's other things too. There's you're at the beginning of the exploration,
right,
on his behalf. Diet is something you look at.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy's certainly something you look at. We've had somebody on here that has talked about essential oils, how that
Right.
made a difference.
Right.
There's who knows if it's Chinese medicine. We I don't know about that, but we are connected with people that focus on alternative medicines.
Yeah,
so,
we have a lot of resources
yes,
at our disposal.
I would think maybe go that direction first.
Oh, of
and
course.
Then anybody that's listening to this too, Josh. So we do this podcast. Josh was diagnosed 25 years ago.
Right.
Life for Connor, hopefully, will be different than it was for Josh when he was diagnosed at 7. They didn't know any of this. ABA was never an option, was never even a discussion when it came to your brother.
Right.
So Josh never had those interventions early, those therapies early.
Right.
He would go into a psychiatrist's office and they would talk, but it wasn't ABA.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when he went out into a real situation, he couldn't apply what he learned from the psychiatrist's office or psychologist's office in real time. It didn't translate.
Right.
He couldn't carry that with him. So Josh he does have multiple diagnoses, but he is diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and ADD is another one that he's diagnosed with. It's different. It's not hyperactive, so he has a hard time following through and staying on track, whereas Connor can bounce around.
I have a question for you.
Mm.
So the ABA is they're going to be coming to our home 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So is that like how Buddy had TSSs that used to come to the house? Is that the same thing? Or now I know he was older when that happened, but is that similar?
Right. I think that it was, because with wraparound services, I think that's available in more states than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But when you grew up in Pennsylvania, so there they had what's called wraparound services. So that included a behavioral specialist, a therapeutic support person, and a TSS, which is would meet him in school.
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, a lot of it was, though, what they did is something called transferring of skills. So they would try to get him and us to learn about autism, learn about what specifics would benefit him, how to do things differently,
mm-hmm.
how to make things in a routine. But yeah, they tried to do the real time. So, working at home, they would take him out in the community.
Right.
But even then, they did not, and I'll go back and look in his paperwork to verify this, but ABA was not discussed with me.
Right.
When he was growing up. It's never been discussed. Nobody has ever brought it up in regards to Josh.
Okay.
So, I don't know if it was if it was part of it, but it was different.
It was just called something different.
Yes, it could be, because what they did is they had somebody that wrote the treatment plan for him,
right,
and how we would do things for him, the expectations, what we would be working on, what the goals were. The therapist would come in home, would do the trying to do the transfer of skills, which would mean that, again, they would show us how to do things. They would show him how to do things by teaching us. Then, when it's just us, because we have a therapist. How often?
Right.
We're with them all the time. We could take those tools and implement those on a regular basis. The TSS would be, well, she said a lot of times that she felt like she was his bodyguard.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because he was not treated very well.
Yeah.
By
I felt like his bodyguard too.
Yes, you did, didn't you? And so she would be the one that would prompt and redirect in the moment. So there was a person who wrote the plan, person in home helping to transfer skills, then in the school setting and in the community, prompting and redirecting in the moment.
Okay.
Because again, it went back to, he could go see a doctor in their office, but he didn't know how to apply those skills, let alone remember those once he left.
Right.
He just couldn't, if you asked him, what did you talk about? I don't know.
That's what Connor does.
Yeah, doesn't remember.
Mm-mm. But if you talk about it, he can talk about it. Like, to a degree. Like, if you bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, whenever he was going to preschool before COVID, he could not, for the life of me, or him, I guess, whatever the phrase would be for someone else, he could not tell me what he did in school. But the teachers would, leave notes for me about what they did. And if I were to take the notes and talk about, whatever they were doing, he could give me specific details about one of the things that he particularly enjoyed. And it would be very specific because everything with Connor is very specific. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do broad, he does specifics. So...
And something that's complicated with Connor is that, just like with Josh, you have to give advance notice of something. Ugh. But the complicated part with Connor is that once you tell him something, he fixates on it and won't let up.
Was he not like that?
Not like Connor, no.
Okay.
It had to be... Still to this day, he has to be given notice.
Right.
And things have to be a routine.
Right.
But it was easier, probably the only thing that was easier with Josh was that he didn't constantly focus on something. He would ask about it. Mm-hmm. I would reassure him that was still happening.
Right.
But with Connor, if you say something... especially if it's something that he wants to do, he will constantly talk about it, constantly ask about it, to a point where that's just the conversation until it happens.
Right.
It's hard to talk about anything else.
Right.
So that is something that's different between the two of them.
Okay.
Yeah. But just like with your brother, he has to have advance notice. You cannot spring anything on him, and he needs a routine. Mm-hmm. And so, I know that we're all, and it's I think for you that it's a little bit harder too, because now they have essentially 3 homes.
Yeah, they do.
Because your dad and I are still married. So, Josh, that's all that he's known.
Right.
And Connor and Madison, have dealt with you separating with RJ.
Right.
And it's been you two have, taken care of one another through the process, meaning you and RJ. Mm-hmm. It's caring about how the other one's doing, making sure that, RJ moved away for a while. That was very hard on Connor.
Right.
Very hard. And even then I was about to say that you made sure that they did FaceTime often. And,
right.
But now we have a place. RJ has a place and you have a place.
Right.
So it is a situation where I feel like when there's been changes, so RJ moved back down here.
Right.
To be closer to them.
Right.
Which is really cool of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad he's able to do that. But that's difficult for Connor to not know. And I see so many things about Connor and with Madison that were the same with you and your brother. So what I see is that Connor has to have things a certain way all the time.
Right.
And then Madison is just like this little free spirit that goes along with, yeah, that's fine. She's very agreeable.
Right.
And it is so important that she has her say-so as well, though.
Right.
I mean, she's going to be 4 in about 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. And she can be a stinker. Opinionated. but conversations help her to get over that pretty easily.
Right.
But I do see that they're both dealing with something that that you and your brother didn't have to, and I can see that as you and RJ are trying to get things worked out, like schedules and the thing that I'm having the most trouble with is because they stay here 2-3 nights a week. Because they have their bunk beds here, they have their own room. But it's, oh no, we don't have pajamas. So, like a lot of homes that have, that have split like that, their belongings are different places. Right. So, they don't worry about that.
Right.
That's, kind of like my concern, but...
Yeah. I have them during the day most days of the week. I think Monday is the only day that I don't have them during the day. Because I work at night. My schedule is very sporadic, I guess.
Long hours and late. So they stay, and RJ gets up 5:30, sometimes 4:30 to go to work. So what happens is you have them during the day, you drop them off with me. I have them until he gets home. He takes them until
9-ish.
A lot of times I will feed them, but then he'll have them until bedtime. And then they come back up here and they go to bed.
Right.
And it's stressful for everybody.
Including the kids.
Yeah, yes. To make, and we're all working very hard to make sure that we get a schedule that's clear cut for them. Because, when your schedule changes, when it was just a learning process that I feel like we didn't do very well at times because Connor didn't get the advance notice and he didn't have the routine.
Right.
And you could really tell because he would have meltdowns all the time.
Right.
As we get better at a schedule and they know what to expect more, I think that I can see that he's kind of easing into it more and is more comfortable.
Right.
But I do talk to him all the time. Do you do that as well? Tell him what's happening?
Yeah. Oh, he needs that.
What does that look like with you when you tell him that you're going to go, that he's going to go someplace? Something else I want to say, too, with Connor, before I forget, is that whoever he's with is the person he wants to stay with.
Right.
Wherever he's going and that person is leaving, says he doesn't want to stay there.
Right.
And it's interesting because it's that pattern consistently.
Right.
It's, he doesn't like the change.
Right.
He doesn't like it at all. And it affects him every single time.
Right.
Even though he's comfortable with where he's going to go. I mean, he knows that he's going to be safe. He knows it's going to be good. I mean, what I mean by that is there's going to be time to play. There's going to be...
Right. It's interesting because you're absolutely right. Like, he will... he'll tell me, I don't I don't want to go to Gammy's, or I don't want to go to Daddy's, I want to stay here. But then whenever I come to pick him up, I don't want to go to Mommy's, or I don't want to go to Kenny's, because I want to stay with Gammy, you know? And it's the same thing with when I pick them up from RJ's, or whenever RJ comes to drop them off. It's, I don't want to, you know.
Yeah. Every single time.
Yeah.
Without fail, every single time it's like that.
I don't know what to do about that, though, because, like you said, we are divorced, and everybody deserves a piece of him.
Well, and I think that as we get a schedule that's more reliable, you know, hopefully that's going to help. Because it hasn't been easy.
No.
Because RJ just moved down here, then he just got a job, and then, you know, so it's been a couple of weeks of where we didn't even know where they were going to go.
Yeah.
And when they were going to go.
I texted RJ this morning and asked him if we can get together some tomorrow, so that we can hash out a fixed schedule. And he texted me back a few minutes ago and said, yes, we can do that. So we're going to figure something out together that works out for everyone. And I think what I can do that might help him is I can make us like a little calendar for each of our houses, so that he can, and we can show him, because he likes to know what day it is. He likes to know, you know, what time it is even. Even though he can't tell you what day or what time it is, he likes to know those things. So if I make him a little calendar that this is what we do on each day, he might really like that, okay, this is the plan and this is what day it is. And I can even have him go and move you know, I can make it like a magnet or something, and you know, we move the magnet so he knows what day it is, and he can move it.
I think it's a great idea. I forgot to tell you, this is totally off subject, but it made me laugh so hard. He told me today that Santa is the nicest old human that he knows.
That sounds like him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah.
Yes.
I've been talking about Santa a lot lately.
Yeah.
Because when he's naughty, which list are you on, Connor?
Yeah. Well, he's excited. He's
I know.
Yeah, he's real excited about it. So that's all the stuff that's going on with Connor. But how do you feel? How's this been for you?
I mean, I already knew. I mean, we did a podcast about it already because we knew. It definitely made it real. For the most part, I think I held it together whenever we were being told. And I went into work, and it was admin day, so I go back in, and the other managers are in the office taking care of stuff, and I walk in, and they're like, how'd it go? And kind of filled them in a little bit, and, you know, still kind of, eyes are filling up a little bit, but, you know, pretty much holding it together. And Amanda walks out of the office, taking care of some stuff, and I start to set up my center for the day. And I walk out, I'm holding my stuff to set up my ATM, and I just start crying. And I broke COVID law, and Amanda hugged me and made me feel better. But that's the only kind of meltdown I've had. But you know, it doesn't change anything, and I think Kenny said it best. He's, you know, it doesn't change how you feel about him. It doesn't change who he is. You already knew all of this, and this is progress because now we can get him what he needs.
And for those of you listening, I don't think we've ever talked about that before, is that you know, Bug and RJ are divorced, and Haley has a relationship with a wonderful human as Connor would say it. And his name is Kenny. And he's been wonderful for the kids and very supportive and loving. And so it's a very positive addition to the family. He's so anyway. When Haley, when Bug is talking about saying Kenny, then that's who she's talking about. It's her boyfriend, and it's and I know that brings up things for different people. RJ and Kenny get along fine. Everybody's friendly and supportive of one another, and everybody works together to help the kids to be as happy and
we're a really good team, all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not something that we think that it's a disaster if somebody's diagnosed to be on the spectrum.
No.
We also know
I didn't cry because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I cried because I know that this means his life is going to be harder than it could be. And, the doctor said, in a couple of years he might test out of qualifying for treatment. He might test out of the diagnosis, which would be great, but he's still going to have struggles beyond his sister, even,
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for any parent to acknowledge, like, it's not that there's going to be... I don't look at the diagnosis as a bad thing. I look at his life and I know what challenges he's going to face, and that's what's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But he has more support than most, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He has a powerhouse team and is surrounded by nothing but love.
Mm-hmm.
And more is on its way soon. Nana and Pappy are moving up from Florida, and everywhere you turn, he's got people that love him and his sister, and it really helps that I'm not going to say that you've been through it, because it's going to be different with every single person. He's his own individual, but at the same time, you've been through it. And I've been through it, but on a different end. Like, I have not raised somebody with autism, but I have.
Yeah. I think that you can really be helpful for Madison.
Because I've been in her shoes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's something that I did my best, but I didn't fully understand. There were some times when you were growing up that we would get into a pattern of doing things, and it wasn't until, like, I just didn't think about it. And then in therapies it would come up that this thing is hard for you when something would happen in a certain way that I had been doing it.
Right.
And I didn't know. I didn't realize that it was having an effect on you the way it was. And so what I mean by that is setting up patterns to help your brother to be successful, and inadvertently there would be patterns placed on you that were not necessary and were not helpful for you, and some responsibility that did not need to be yours.
Right.
And although I thought that I was doing that because I always had you in mind, even though I had was focused on him, with these particular patterns and routines, I didn't realize that it was affecting you in the way that it was. And so that's the benefit that she's going to have that you didn't have, because you're going to make sure that those issues don't happen, because you know when they come up. You know what it felt like. And so I think that's a benefit for her.
Well, I'm going to do my best. So Congratulations, Gammy. I don't remember what you're talking about. So that's excellent. Means it wasn't... I'm sure in the moment it was very real. But you handled it well enough that I don't remember it. So that's really good.
I'll give you an example, is that there would be a specific time in the evening where it would be time to brush teeth because he did better then. And I would have you go brush your teeth with him.
Oh, yeah, he would spit on me.
And it became, and I didn't know that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just an example. What I would say is that, okay, it's time to brush teeth. You kids go brush your teeth.
Right.
What's better for you? And as soon as, is that he brushes his teeth at a specific time. Here's what I'm saying. He would be at times so controlling in order to keep the peace. If he had to go brush his teeth at a certain time, in his mind, you had to brush your teeth too.
Right.
So, okay, Bug, run on out, brush your teeth. Didn't think anything about it. Problem is, you didn't need that kind of structure. You're going to go brush your teeth before you go to bed.
Right.
When you're little, I'm gonna prompt you to do that, but there's not going to be a resistance. There was no resistance from you.
Right.
So that's just a little tiny example of that, which is that you didn't want to be up there when he brushed his teeth because, he was a hog about it and spit. It just was and that's not something that you wanted to have to deal with.
But he's still gross.
Well, that's a different podcast.
I still wouldn't want to brush my teeth with him.
That's right. I have had to clean this sink occasionally, and I can support that. I don't want flies. Flies around everywhere when he's brushing his teeth. So
he's a wild man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there we are. The diagnosis is official. Do you know when therapies will start?
So I got the list of places that provide ABA services.
Mm-hmm.
And I came over here. They were opening their offices whenever I was coming over. But also it's the day before a holiday, so I don't know if they're open. But I wasn't going to call over here. I want to call at home so I can write my notes and I can get everything figured out. Because I need to find out, I need to make sure insurance covers it. And if they don't, then call another one, and another one, and another one. And if that doesn't work out, then I need to figure out another solution to make sure that he gets what he needs. So, and there are alternatives. There are ways to go about it. We've been given a couple different options, and one other option
for insurance purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he absolutely will get the ABA. I don't care how I have to figure it out, but we'll figure it out.
Okay. Good deal.
He's gonna get what he needs.
Yeah. Make sure that you get what you need in the whole process too.
There are lots of groups. I think right now, because of COVID, I'm not going to pursue that at all. Yeah. Honestly.
And I think that's tough too because of COVID. I mean, he would really benefit, both kids, but Connor would really benefit being around kids.
Well,
and his school, it's just...
Why do you think I was so adamant about getting him to the Mommy and Me groups in Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew when he was so little that he needed it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been through aged speech and occupational therapy whenever he was 2 because we recognized when he was tiny that he needed extra help.
Mm-hmm. Because he didn't even talk until he was 2.
Yeah, no mama, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we've been very proactive and we've we've done a lot to make sure that he's okay already. So this is just the next step, and he's very, very loved.
Yeah.
So he'll be okay.
Yeah.
Whatever it looks like, he's going to be okay.
So I got to tell you, he has a wicked sense of humor.
You right?
He is so funny. Yes, he makes me laugh all the time. So that's something that we've always done things with him to help him to see the emotions, and that's just one that looking at you with his eyes and humor is something that has stuck. And he will do things, and you can tell he knows what he's doing with the humor.
Oh, yeah. That was, so at the very beginning of the podcast, I said there are two things that kind of put him close to being out of the range, you know? Those were the two things, was his sense of humor and eye contact.
And his motor skills, so I would say a third one, he's very...
Well, that's normal with autism, right? Buddy has insane... Buddy used to play his... That's not normal.
It's both.
She's shaking her head, by the way.
I'm shaking my head. No, both your brother and Connor have excellent motor skills. But
Okay.
no, that's not typical.
Okay. I only know
that's normal for your brother, and using the term normal loosely here, but normal for your brother and Connor.
right.
But typically,
Right,
no.
right.
That
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what I know from Buddy, so.
Right.
All right.
Well, there we go. So, keep us updated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. For those of you folks that have a little person on the spectrum, please send us some information if you feel like sharing, and what you've done that helps, what types of therapies have helped you the most, what have not helped you. Just let us know so we can, consider that when we move forward with Connor. And because again, Josh was diagnosed 25 years ago.
Right.
These were not even discussions that we had.
Yeah. Also, I've done a lot of research on school programs, and that's still probably our biggest concern is school. So any feedback in that realm of the world, we like that too.
Yes. Connor just turned 5, but he held him back, but he didn't make the cutoff anyway.
So by 4 days.
So he couldn't have gone to school.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. Bug, thanks for coming and hanging out with me and sharing what you found out about the little dude.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, please give us 5 stars if you feel like it, because it helps us to be found quicker and easier for others. And please check us out at my website, sonyaking.com, SONYAKING. You can find previous podcasts and blogs. And you can also go there to send us any emails that you'd like if you want to connect with us. So, yeah, check us out. And take care of yourselves. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
And we will talk to you next week. Love ya.
Love you.